y'all, if you haven't watched my last video, go watch it. Because not only did the first 10 pages piss me off, but the rest of the 100-page document pissed me off as well, but even more than before. So buckle up, Buttercup, because I took notes this time. I did learn that it is the U.S. Attorney, not a U.S. Attorney General, U.S. Attorney, I believe his name is Alex Acosta, and this is in regards to Florida. First point of interest is that professionally, Acosta knew Epstein's defense attorney, Kevin Starr, who I believe was the primary defense attorney for Epstein, that worked for Kirkland and Ellis. At one point, Acosta worked at that same law firm, and he also worked with Starr. And then later, ended up leaving that law firm, but they still remained acquaintances, or professional acquaintances, as Acosta would say. And so automatically, to me, that reads as a conflict of interest, and probably should have been a point of concern, but it wasn't. As we go through the document, it is discussed that there were originally 3 charges proposed in the indictment and the plea deal. But at some point, those 3 charges got morphed into 1 charge. And when specifically asked about it, Acosta said, "I don't know how that happened." And the person who was questioning him said, "I don't know how you don't know that happened, because you had to approve all of the work of your legal team." And Acosta's like, "Gee, dude, I don't know. I have no recollection of how that could have occurred." And the person questioning him provided receipts of, "Oh, these were the edits that you made to this plea deal?" As if there wasn't going to be evidence of that. Acosta then approved the plea deal term sheet, and when asked about it, said that he didn't remember doing so, and he wasn't sure how it got approved. As if anybody else was going to be able to approve it when he's the boss of the legal team working on this case. He then admits that he didn't know if the charges that were initially proposed pertained to one victim that was assaulted 3 times or 3 separate victims. He also stated that he didn't know if any of the victims that were pertaining to those charges were minors. Mind you, this is the guy who's in charge of the entire legal proceeding pertaining to Epstein. He then spends the entirety of the document saying, "Oh, well, we were set at 2 years. We weren't going to go any lower than that." And he was asked, "Oh, was that a bluff?" And he said, "No, it wasn't a bluff. We were firm on that. We were going to say, hey, if you don't take this plea deal of 2 years, we're going to do an indictment." And then what happens? They say, "Oh, look right here on the plea deal that says 18 months and not 2 years. What happened there?" And Acosta's like, "I don't know." And then they say, "Hey, look at this record that says you approved this plea deal." And he's like, "Geez, dude, beats me." And then at some point, one of his employees reaches out and says, "Hey, this plea deal issue is falling apart. I really think we should just give up on it and go for the indictment." And Acosta's like, "No, dude, we should really keep pushing on this because I really want that 2 years. That's what he's telling the questioner. And then there's email receipts that say, "Actually, that's not what happened." His employee said, "Hey, these deals are falling apart. I think we should indict." And Acosta said, "No, you should keep trying. We should really make this work." As if his employee wasn't asking for help and saying, "Hey, this isn't working. We should just do what we said we were going to do." To which point Acosta says, "Oh, it's really just better if I don't get involved with the negotiations. I really shouldn't get involved in that. It's not my responsibility." As if he's not in charge of the entire legal proceeding and the legal team that is handling the negotiations. It's then revealed that in the plea agreement, there was initially something that was an immunity provision, which provided immunity to all of Epstein's co-conspirators. And when asked about this, Acosta said, "Gee, dude, I don't know how that got in there." And the questioner was like, "Hey, dude, you realize that that's a problem, right? Because 20 years from now, if we find out somebody is a co-conspirator of Epstein, they have immunity." Mind you, there were 4 people specifically named in the immunity provision. And instead of just saying, "Hey, let's give those 4 people immunity," they extended it to all co-conspirators. And on top of that, as if that's not bad enough, all of the 4 people named that could receive immunity refused to cooperate with any sort of investigation by law enforcement. So this isn't even transactional immunity where it's like, "Hey, if you give us all of these receipts, we'll give you immunity and we won't prosecute you." It was, "Hey, you're going to get immunity for free so that we can get Epstein to sign this plea deal and only serve 18 months of jail time." Then, throughout this entire 100-page document, anytime he's asked why there's discrepancies, why he wasn't aware of what was going on. Acosta's like, well, I just assumed everybody knew what they were doing because they have a lot of legal experience. I just assumed they put a lot of thought in this and they were thorough. I'm sorry, was your job to assume or be in charge of the legal proceedings and be the boss to these people that are representing the prosecution? As if that wasn't bad enough, he ends up adding a bunch of best efforts to the plea agreement, which was Epstein has to give his best effort to comply by these rules. Epstein have to give his best effort to turn himself in. And then, lo and behold, once this was approved, everybody was like, oh God, Epstein's not listening. And all Epstein had to do was, well, I'm giving my best effort. So I don't know if this guy's just fucking stupid, if he's just ignorant, if he's negligent, or all of the above. But I'm very curious as to what the qualifications are for somebody to be a U.S. attorney and then do a bunch of stupid shit like this and not actually know what's going on in one of the most high-profile investigations of this century.